Welcome back. I'm so excited you're joining us for this explainer because today we're popping the hood on the human brain. We're going to look at exactly how we acquire new skills. I mean, we all learn things every single day, right? But how often do we actually stop and think about the mechanics of that process? Today, we are breaking down the exact variables that decide why and how knowledge actually sticks in our minds, relying entirely on the structured science of learning variables. Let's get right into it.
Think about it for a second. Have you ever hit just an absolute brick wall while studying? You know the feeling. You read the same paragraph 5 times and literally nothing computes. Yet other times, you pick up a totally new concept in an afternoon. No sweat. So why does that happen? Well, it turns out it's not random. As we'll see today, learning is governed by a super specific, precise set of variables. It's basically an equation. And once you understand the variables in that equation, you'll completely change how you approach acquiring any new skill.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First up, the individual learner. Second, the learning material. And third, the learning situation. Simple as that. Okay, let's dive right into our first pillar, the individual learner. Before we even crack open a book or start a practice routine, we really have to look inward. What are the physical and mental preconditions that we bring to the table? The source material outlines 7 critical individual variables that define us as learners. To make this super easy to digest, let's split those 7 variables into 2 distinct categories. Think of this as the complete blueprint of your internal learning engine. On one side, we've got biological factors. That's maturation, age, sex, and physical handicaps. These are basically hardwired into our physical being. On the flip side, we have psychological factors, readiness, previous experience, and mental abilities. Let's unpack the really crucial ones here to see how they set the ceiling on your potential. The absolute foundation of this whole process rests on 2 things, maturation and readiness. Maturation is purely biological. It's just the natural unfolding of your inherited biological potential over time. The source is crystal clear on this. Without a sufficient degree of biological maturity, specific learning simply isn't going to happen. I mean, a child literally cannot learn a highly complex task if their brain and body just haven't matured enough to physically handle it. Then we pair that biology with readiness. Learning readiness is all about capacity and willingness. You've got to be mentally set. If you're biologically mature and mentally ready, you're going to learn faster, better, and honestly with way more satisfaction. Now, what's really fascinating about this is how our chronological age dictates our learning ability along a very specific arc, assuming all other factors stay constant, of course. It progressively increases until we hit about 20 years old. Then it plateaus and stays pretty much constant right through our 20s and up to age 30. But then the data shows that our sheer biological ability to soak up new material actually declines rapidly after 50. It's a pretty eye-opening look at our biological window of peak efficiency, isn't it? The source material also documents some interesting observations regarding sex differences when it comes to acquiring specific abilities. It notes that boys often excel in learning gross motor skills, the kind that involve larger muscle groups. Conversely, it's observed that girls tend to do better in skills that require delicate coordination of smaller muscles, as well as tasks needing strict attention to detail. This is reported simply as an observable variable in the mechanics of how we initially pick up different types of physical or detailed skills. To wrap up this section on the individual, we have to acknowledge a few more key preconditions. First off, your previous experience. This is a massive motivational force. Success breeds success, right? Successful past experiences motivate you to push harder, while previous failures act like a heavy anchor and lower your aspirations. Next, your innate mental abilities. Things like general intelligence, creativity, reasoning. Obviously, these set the starting line for any complex task. And finally, physical handicaps. Defects in vision, hearing, or orthopedic limits physically retard the learning of many skills. So all of these factors combined make up the entirely unique individual learner, which is you.
Moving right along, let's hit section 2, the learning material.
So we're shifting gears from the internal engine of the person to the actual object of study itself. The nature of what you're trying to learn plays a huge role in how fast you can learn it. Think of the task kind of like a physical weight you're trying to lift at the gym. 2 of the biggest variables here are length and difficulty. If the length of the material exceeds your natural memory span, the time it takes to learn it goes way, way up. And if the task is highly difficult, well, it demands way more mental energy. That creates fatigue. Just like your physical muscles tire out after a heavy set, cognitive fatigue directly, and sometimes drastically, slows down your learning rate. But hey, here's where we find a massive shortcut: meaningfulness.
It is so much easier to learn and retain meaningful material compared to stuff that just seems meaningless. Why? Because meaning allows you to identify past experiences that you can hook the new information onto. When you associate a new concept with something you already deeply understand, it literally slashes the friction of learning. You aren't building a brand new house from scratch, you're just adding a new room to a house you've already built. It's a total game changer.
All right, we've arrived at section 3, the learning situation.
If the individual and the task are the cards you were dealt, these method variables are exactly how you choose to play the game. These are the environmental levers you can pull right now to get better outcomes. First up is your basic strategy of attack, the method of learning. Do you tackle a big subject all at once, or do you chop it up into smaller chunks? Well, it depends completely on the material. If the unit of study is highly meaningful and compact, the source recommends what's called the whole method, learning it all together in one go. But if you're staring down a highly complex topic where the individual parts are actually more closely integrated and complicated than the whole, the part method is absolutely the way to go. You have to match your method to your material.
Now here is a crucial and honestly vastly overlooked method: overlearning. This is the golden rule of retention. Most of us stop studying the exact second we get the answer right, don't we? But retention increases with practice, and the source material explicitly recommends overlearning for much better retention. So what does that mean? Overlearning means you keep learning and practicing well beyond the point of your first errorless reproduction. Getting it right that first time just means you've built the bridge. Overlearning is what paves it in concrete, so it actually lasts. Next up is how you actually schedule your time. Look, we've all pulled all-nighters trying to cram what the source formally calls massed practice. And guess what? It is simply less effective for long-term retention, period. For better learning and a much longer memory lifespan, you need distributed practice, which is basically spaced-out practice. Distributing your study sessions completely removes the sheer monotony of studying for hours on end. It gives your brain a fresh start after a period of rest, which stops that nasty cognitive fatigue we talked about earlier. And crucially, it maintains your actual interest in the task.
We also definitely can't ignore the environment itself. Having a clear incentive available in your learning situation encourages better learning and much longer retention. It's an external, environmental variable that acts as a major catalyst. If there's a tangible reason or a reward tied to the learning process, you're just going to remember it better. It gives you the necessary fuel to maintain that distributed practice we literally just talked about.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final method variable, the nature of the sensory approach. As the source says, our senses are the gateways of knowledge. How effectively you learn depends heavily on how many senses you're actively involving. Just look at the VAK model. That stands for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. Notice how it builds up step by step. Step 1 is just a standard lecture. Okay, fine. Step 2 adds a chart or a picture. Getting better. Step 3 combines the chart with videos. Now we're talking. And Step 4 layers in charts, videos, and physical activities. By sequentially adding more senses to the mix, you're creating a multisensory approach that causes fundamentally deeper, much more effective learning.
So, we've seen today that acquiring knowledge isn't magic at all. It's a delicate, structured balance of the individual learner, the learning material, and the learning situation. You know the variables now. You know exactly how age, meaningfulness, overlearning, and multisensory methods dictate your ultimate success. So I want to leave you with this provocative question. Looking at your own daily study habits, which of these 3 core learning variables are you going to actively change today to master your next skill?